Donald Trump is one against the woke corporate press. CBS and Paramount agreed to pay Trump $16 million over Kamala's edited 60 Minutes interview because they knew what they did was wrong. And don't forget, my friends, Bernie Sanders appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast and said, "Don't sue. You shouldn't sue the press. They say fake things about me all the time." Oh, boy, I'm real excited to say all the nasty things about you, Bernie Sanders, because you said you wouldn't sue the media. You going to sue me? I got a lot of things to say about you, none of which are true, but I'm going to say it anyway, because by your logic, anybody should be allowed to falsely accuse people of anything. Here's a story from the Post-Millennial. They say CBS's parent company Paramount has agreed to pay President Donald Trump a multi-million-dollar settlement after CBS 60 Minutes was accused of deceptively editing an interview with then Vice President Kamala Harris to influence voters in the run-up to the 2024 presidential election. I just want to add, considering Bernie Sanders is working really hard to help Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and socialists, I, too, will engage in such behaviors because Bernie says it's okay, and I know he won't sue me, right? According to Fox News, Trump will receive $16 million up front. The money is expected to cover legal fees, case-related expenses, and potential contributions to Trump's future presidential library or charitable efforts at his discretion. In addition to the cash settlement, the outlet reported that CBS is anticipated to allocate a significant sum, reportedly in the mid-eight-figure range, towards conservative-friendly public service announcements, advertisements, or similar messaging. Paramount management has disputed this portion of the settlement. Cry more. The agreement also includes a sweeping editorial change known internally as the Trump Rule. CBS will now be required to release full, unedited transcripts of interviews with presidential candidates promptly going forward. Wow. Just the transcripts? They should have argued that the raw footage should be made available online. You can publish and broadcast a more succinct, interview if you'd like, so long as it's not deceptive, and you're going to publish the full raw footage. That's what I'd like to see. With this record settlement, President Donald J. Trump delivers another win for the American people as he once again holds the fake news media accountable for the wrongdoing and deceit. A spokesperson for Trump's legal team told Fox News. President Trump will always ensure that no one gets away with lying to the American people. Trump originally sought $20 billion in damages in his suit, alleging that 60 Minutes had deceptively edited the 2024 interview with then Vice President and presidential candidate Kamala Harris during an exchange where correspondent Bill Whitaker asked Harris why Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wasn't listening to the Biden admin. In a preview aired on Face the Nation, Harris was shown giving a rambling word salad response. However, during the primetime special, CBS aired a more polished version of the same answer, sparking accusations the network edited the footage to make her look better. Why? The first clip they put out, they did not realize, presumably, that it would look so bad. And so when she was giving a rambling word salad answer and the internet went nuts, claiming that it was, incoherent ramblings, they changed it after the fact, realizing it was hurting her politically. That's the argument. Raw transcripts and footage released by the FCC earlier this year confirmed both versions were part of the same response, and that CBS had split the answer in two, broadcasting different portions in different programs. Yo, that's crazy. Critics in Trump's legal team alleged the edit was deliberately misleading and amounted to election interference. CBS previously denied any wrongdoing and said it stood by its reporting. However, mounting pressure from federal investigators and a looming FCC probe prompted CBS to release the unedited transcript, which became a key piece of evidence in Trump's amended complaint. Sources familiar with the matter say mediation was driven by concern with Paramount's executives, and the company's pursues as the company pursues a merger with Skydance Media. Sherry Redstone, Paramount's controlling shareholder, reportedly pushed for a resolution to avoid complications with the FCC, which has the authority to delay or block media mergers. Paramount claimed the settlement is completely separate from the Skydance transaction. The CBS settlement does not include a statement of regret or any formal admission of journalistic wrongdoing. Paramount said in a statement, the settlement includes a release of all claims regarding any CBS reporting through the date of the settlement. Bill Owens left the network, their executive producer, in April, claiming he no longer had editorial independence. Wow. Despite the internal dissent, Paramount moved forward the settlement, which surpasses $15 million ABC paid to Trump last year to settle a separate defamation lawsuit involving anchor George Stephanopoulos. In that case, ABC also paid an additional $1 million to cover his expenses. Now, hold on there, gosh darn minute. What's this? Bernie Sanders spars with Joe Rogan over Trump's 60 Minutes lawsuit. The impact is clearly intimidation, the senator says. Senator Bernie Sanders raised the alarm about president's lawsuits against news organizations, including his $20 billion suit against CBS over a 60-minute segment on the latest episode of Joe Rogan. Now, this is from, I think, this is a month ago. Oh, wait, it's not a month ago. This is a week ago. Oh, crap. I got to say, one of the things, and there's a lot of arguments about Trump that worries me very, very much, is this movement towards authoritarianism and Trump going after media, suing media, Sanders said on the June 24th episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. The Vermont senator cited Trump's 60-minute lawsuit, which Paramount and CBS have called meritless. We know now that he won. Rogan, who endorsed Trump in 2024, asked Sanders about CBS case, which involved alleged deceptive editing. Don't you think there's a real issue with what they did? Sanders said, no. Rogan pressed the issue. You don't think that there's a real issue in editing conversations to give someone an answer different than what they really answered? Joe, I've been on 8 zillion shows, right, in my life, okay? Now, should I sue you if you ask me some stupid question that I don't like? After Sanders cited the investigative reporting legacy of 60 Minutes, Rogan countered that CBS editing of the Harris interview to make it look more precise was not investigative journalism. If you ask her a question and she comes out with a rambling answer that doesn't make sense, and you edit that out and insert another answer to a different question that seems more cogent. They say CBS did not insert another answer. No. They just spliced up what she said to make it look coherent. Sanders told Rogan, you're walking down a dangerous path. Suing media has the impact of intimidating media, all right? You could be sued tomorrow, right? Because you are doing this. You're too sympathetic to this. And Joe, you did that, and they have a big law firm behind them, and you're going to have to spend zillions of dollars defending yourself. You know what? Next time you do an interview, you say, maybe I'm not going to go in that area. Senator continued, if I were to sue everybody who said things that were factually incorrect about me, I'd be suing people zillions of times. But Joe, what you're saying is, does media get it wrong sometimes? Absolutely. Should you have the most powerful person in America suing media? What is the impact of that? The impact is clearly intimidation. Oh, boy. What could I say about Bernie Sanders right now? Because he says you shouldn't sue the media. I think Bernie Sanders is a communist. Okay. That's legally protected. It's an opinion. I could say something like, I think Bernie Sanders wants to use physical violence against children as a threat to the American public after he installs a communist dictatorship. Once again, still just a protected opinion. All right, let's crank the knob up. How about Bernie Sanders will force women to have children with incels to maintain his communist utopia, and he will mercilessly beat any woman who defies him, in my opinion. Once again, just a protected opinion. See, I'm just assuming, based on Bernie Sanders' politics, all of those things are true. Now, where you get into the realm of defamation of public figures is when you assert they did things they did not do while having some evidence to say you knew it was not true. Like if I said Bernie Sanders physically abused AOC and punched her in the stomach because she told him that she didn't want to go that far with communism, if I said something like that, then he might have a claim against me. The problem with lawsuits in this regard is that he'd have to prove beforehand there is some evidence I knew what I was saying was not true. Now, of course, as I've only explained that as a hypothetical, not actually accuse the man of doing it, once again, he can't sue me for anything. Not that he would, because the dude said you shouldn't sue the media. So, like, if I were to say something like Bernie Sanders murdered a woman in his late 30s and buried the body at where his now Vermont summer home is, if I were to say something like that, well, they could sue me for defamation. If I said that he routinely kills and tortures small animals, and I've seen it with my own 2 eyes, if I were to say something like that, he could sue me for defamation. Now, I'm not saying that. That's just a hypothetical explaining what you can't say about someone, right? Anyway, in all seriousness, I'm making a joke. I have nothing to accuse Bernie Sanders of in any legitimate sense other than, yeah, he's a communist, right? All of those things were examples of how you get to that point, with the point being, if I were to publicly accuse Bernie Sanders of torturing small animals as a hobby on the weekends, you'd think that dude's going to let that slide like, people say fake things about me all the time. Oh, please, dude. And there's a lot worse things I could say, but for the purpose of keeping this, a bit, in front of the line, not over it, I'm not going to go there. But anybody knows, like when they accuse Trump of a P-tape and all that stuff, that ain't even the worst you can get. They accused Trump and sued him for raping a woman with no evidence. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? Let me tell you this. Bernie Sanders once wrote a paper about how women fantasize about getting raped. That's true. Let me pull this one up. Bernie Sanders rape fantasy. This is absolutely true. Absolutely 100% true. Bernie Sanders wrote an essay saying women want to be raped. I'm going to say it again. Bernie Sanders wrote an essay saying women want to be raped, which is paradoxical because rape is when you don't want to have sex. Here you go. Look at this. NPR wrote it. The Bernie Sanders rape fantasy essay explained. So what did Bernie Sanders write? And what did he say about rape? I'm not gonna read some of this because it's inappropriate. But he basically said a woman enjoys intercourse with her man as she fantasizes being raped by 3 men simultaneously. So if someone were to say something like, "I believe Bernie Sanders has raped several women," that's actually a protected opinion. Now he can still sue you over it, and you're gonna have to defend yourself. But the reason I say that is, here's a guy who wrote that women want to be gang raped. I would not be surprised if a man who genuinely believed that. Think about what that means. This means that if he's with a woman and she's screaming no, he's thinking in his mind, I know she really wants it. That's Bernie. Sue me, bro. You can't. And you wouldn't anyway, right? Spare me. But this is a true story. NPR.org. I pulled it up. I'm going to wrap it up there. Smash the like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Stay tuned. We got more coming up for you today. The big, beautiful Bill on the line. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all in the next segment.